Sunlight wakes me up, but I don't give up. I'm going back to bed. Got 2 more hours till it's checkout time. Got you warm and naked by my side. Let's do it all again. So light it up. Fall in love. Say too much, just enough. Oh my, my. Oh hell yes. For tonight we'll be stars until the morning comes. We'll be stars until the morning comes. We'll be stars until the morning comes. Shining so bright, just for tonight. We'll be stars until the morning comes. Getting so high, holding you tight. We'll be stars until so light it up. Fall in love. Say too much, just enough. Oh my, my. Oh hell yes. For tonight we'll be stars until the morning comes. Till the morning comes. We'll be stars until the morning comes. We'll be stars until the morning comes. Shining so bright, just for tonight. We'll be stars until the morning comes. Getting so high, all the time. We'll be stars until the morning comes.
When you say you're ready, yeah. You know you have to go. Green light steady, yeah. Just move where the traffic go. We all have plenty, yeah. Just know got the capital, yeah. And we party like an animal. And I always get a number. The thing about it, oh yeah. Yeah, we live life, don't worry about it, oh yeah. Open your eyes, I can tell you about it, oh yeah. Cause we got the strength, yeah, we heaven sent, oh yeah. And we got the time we can spend, yeah. Celebrate, live up your life, yeah. Live up your life, yeah. Live up your life, yeah. Celebrate, live up your life, yeah. Live up your life, yeah. Live up your life, yeah. Aiming for the top, yeah. You gotta aim and take your shot, yeah. Celebrate and live up your life, yeah. Live up your life, yeah. Live up your life, yeah. So everybody toast, you're doing the most. Yo, when the kids stepped in the function, my had racks in abundance. Cause I remember days in the bunk beds, back when I only dreamed of the hundreds. Then it was counting thousands on the mountains, look where we come from. That's why we sit round, have fun. So big man, sit down, have some. Oh yeah, yeah, we live life, don't worry about it. Oh yeah, open your eyes, I can tell you about it. Oh yeah, cause we got the strength, yeah, we heaven sent. Oh yeah. And we got the time we can spend, yeah. Celebrate, live up your life, yeah. Live up your life, yeah. Live up your life, yeah. Celebrate, live up your life, yeah. Live up your life, yeah. Live up your life, yeah. Aiming for the top, yeah. You gotta aim and take your shot, yeah. Celebrate and live up your you before. Never coming back, you can find me on Mars. No slowing down now, all in full gears now, never coming down. It's true, I belong up here where skies are blue. Forever living young, just take me up. 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 Just take me up.
Flash is set no more!
Victory is written! Immortals! Claim their
And we are live! Hello and welcome to the SunTech Convention Center for another day of Icons 2022 coverage. I'm Kangas, and joining me for today are my absolute next level analysts, Riku and TJ. I don't know what that was, but...
Next level.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Synergy already.
I know.
So I know
Do it.
that... What?
Do it.
Do it.
Next
Next
level.
level.
There we go.
Yeah.
We got it. We got it. We're going to have a lot of fun today on the broadcast, as you can tell. And we're nearing the end of the group stage with 8 more matches to go for today. Aaron, I want to get to start off. What are the takeaways from group stage so far? Because we've already seen teams qualify. We've seen some teams stumble, and now we're going to see teams going away.
I know. I think the biggest thing that happened yesterday is the WRL is 4-0. The gap is just incredibly wild, right? They're completely dominant from play-ins up until the group stage, and they're setting the standard of icons right now. They're definitely the team to beat. When I look at all of these teams, you know, first up, I'm looking at Nova. The first person that comes into mind is Long. His performance is just so crazy. He is the best jungler we have in the entire world, and I'm just so amazed about his performance.
That quadra kill on Echo.
He is.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm very passionate because you've seen teams try to ban him out, right?
Yeah.
Completely use all 5 bans against him. No, it feels like every single pick that he picks is his best pick.
Yeah, I would also put 0-7-11 in that
That's true.
conversation.
That's true.
Although Long definitely has had more games to prove his dominance so far.
Absolutely. So, TJ, what's your takeaway then from group stage so far?
From the entire group stage, I think it's kind of connection to that, which is we've seen what works playing the WRL teams, what works, what puts Nova on the back foot, and it is aggression. Team Flash in particular were the standouts because they didn't have this. After Team Flash spent their entire regional leagues playing aggressive, dominating during the early game, they tried to play slow and got obliterated. Instead, it was Omega and it was RRQ that were willing to take risks during the early game, press advantages, and were able to put those Chinese opponents on the back foot. That's something we're looking for today, especially as we get another look at Flashwolves, Bury Room, who weren't able to deliver on those promises, who are playing a little bit too slow. Yes, they're playing each other today. I think they can get away with it. If they want to compete internationally, their gameplay needs to speed up.
The tempo at which all the teams that have qualified for knockouts already, much faster game generally. And my big takeaway is actually something that we'd been hyping up all week going into the group stage, Team Flash. That was the name that everybody kept saying, these are the contenders. These are a team that we should have in that conversation for push top 4, maybe even going towards that finals. I gotta say, I think RRQ is looking like the better team out of the Southeast Asian region.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, RRQ, remember we talked about the conditions. It was TJ that brought it up about how you have to match the micro, the mechanics of the WRL, especially when they went up against JDG and Nova, or rather J-Team yesterday, and they matched everything. It was just that big macro that was, you know, the struggle for a lot of these teams when they went up against them.
And I do want to pump the brakes slightly on the Team Flash are over party.
Okay.
Which is, Team Flash had a really rough result in their first ever game against an international competition. However, I do think that was their first ever real test.
Yeah.
And the real question will be, over the next couple of days, do Team Flash bounce back? Do they look, because I think they'll get out of groups probably no matter what. Do they look better in getting out of groups? Do they manage to demonstrate that early game roaming that looked so good regionally? Do we see Coyote in those side lanes? Because that's what was missing, and I think it can be picked up.
It's the debate of, do the teams play to their own style and what's worked for them, which RRQ has been doing, and finding success against the top regional teams. So it's cool to see how things have been shaping out so far in the group stages. Those are our takeaways. But now let's bring our attention to where things are in the standings, starting off with Group A. Because, of course, teams have started to qualify for the knockout stage. So as we take a look at the bracket there, we'll get our first look, and not only our first matchup of the day, but also a congratulations to Team Nova for making it into the knockout stage. And you see there on the bottom of the group, T1 versus Leviathan will be starting off the day.
T1, one of those teams that we're talking about their early game being missing, very obvious. They played to BDG in their Dragon Lane, gave them Lucian, Nami alongside Penguin as support. That's an early game activation comp. It took them until like 10 minutes to get any action down there. Very worrying sign for them.
And now we move our attention to Group B to see the next team that has qualified into the knockout stage, and also then, of course, the second match that we have of the day. Funny how it keeps working out like that. J-Team advancing to the knockout stage, and Sengoku versus Team Queso.
Oh, that's going to be a very huge thing, right? Because when we look back at Horizon Cup,
rematch.
the rematch is here, baby. Sengoku and Team Queso. I mean, not yesterday. Last year, it was Sengoku winning that 2-0 against Team Queso. So this is the chance for that revenge.
Can I get a rematch, baby?
Rematch, baby. Why
It's
did
too
I
good.
do that?
You're too good. You're too good at the voice acting. Let's take a look at Group C, though, because I was excited for the historical context, but we also have a really exciting matchup here in Group C. First off, congratulations to FBX for advancing to the knockout stage, but Flash Wolves versus BRU.
And this is super fun because they've never actually played each other regionally. Despite both coming from the WCS, they missed each other in brackets. RRQ got between them, and now they get their first real chance at each other, and it's always been a very fun matchup to hypothesize about. Both these teams play slower. Both these teams have looked like that isn't enough here on stage.
It's going to be an exciting matchup to see the two SCA representatives battle it out. I think, Riku, you said one team's going to win. From
Yeah,
the
that's the
WCS
thing,
side.
right? It's going to be very bittersweet. We get to say goodbye to one WCS team, but also as well, we get to see someone else continue their journey.
And now let's take a look at Group D to round out the day, because one other team advanced to the knockout stage yesterday, JDG, with a close series against RY, which means, oh boy, I think I've seen this one before.
I will say, though, like, skipping over whatever is happening today in the bottom bracket,
okay.
I will say, though, Rolster looked really good.
They did.
We've had a lot of questions about the Korean region. Those will come up again when we're talking about T1 in a moment. However, Rolster managed to make that series versus JDG look very close, and there's a hopeful sign for them as they continue in that bracket, awaiting the winner of a match today that I can't remember. I'm looking at my notes.
Yeah, where is it? Where is it, TJ?
no,
what is
See,
it's today,
match
right?
4.
Uh-huh.
No,
Yep.
it's not
Yep.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're actually just not going to stream that one, I don't think. We're just
that's
going to wait for the
a good call.
results and then see what happens. No, it is, of course, Liberty versus Immortals. It's the rematch of North America.
Oh, that I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah. It's an exciting one. Bet my beard on it, of all things. So I have a lot at stake personally for this matchup. I'm hoping that it works out for us. Oh,
There you
we
go.
even have footage of it.
It's that's
So this
the
was
thing,
last
right?
year. This was Horizon Cup.
Yeah, does this look nostalgic to you? How are you feeling?
It looks like fake footage, actually. I don't know if that actually happened. We'll have to check the tape.
happened.
It's a little blurry. I don't know if
happened.
it's real.
Let me just run some clarity for you.
Yeah?
This was because you predicted that North America would get out of groups at Horizon,
Uh-huh.
Yes.
and it didn't
yes.
happen,
Did not happen.
Uh-huh.
and so you had to shave your beard.
Yep.
And you're
you've-
doing it again.
You're doing it again.
220 days of growth right here. I did bet it again, and now Immortals, they have to win 2 series in a row to make it out.
You're
It's
gonna
of
miss
course
your
it's against Liberty,
You're
who
gonna
knocked
miss your
out
beard.
Sentinels too.
I think he's gonna look worse without the beard because it like fills out his face. You know?
Gonna feel empty.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I can rock the mustache.
Yeah, you did it last year, so.
See,
you
the
can do it
thing
again.
is the beard, not the mustache. That's the important thing.
True.
I will say we did get Leonard to like promise to shave off your beard, and
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll respect the mustache role. He's a little bit
He's
of a
gonna
rogue
start with the
agent.
mustache. Yeah, I'm curious where he's gonna start with it. Actually, if it's of course
Where?
if Immortals lose.
Where?
When?
So that's for the
Later.
fans at home,
Later.
the NA fans. But
The
if
end
you're a
of the
fan
day.
here in Singapore, starting with quarterfinals on July 1st, make sure that you come on down to the Icons Fan Zone at the Marina Bay Sands Convention and Expo Center to watch the games live. It's open an hour before the show each
Live.
day, and there are tons of free
Live.
swag, great food, and even a
Woo!
chance to get a pick with a trophy. That's a
Great
really
food.
cool looking trophy.
Yeah.
CJ's on the food. You can see
Great
where
food.
our excitement lies.
Oh yeah, for sure. The really cool looking trophy, the swirlies,
Like a giant
Free
swirling
food.
tower and a
and free
star.
food.
And I think like free swag, that sounds cool as well.
Very true.
Yeah. And free food.
Free food.
Yes.
Free food.
Mm-hmm.
Free food, everybody. Make sure that you come and check it out. You get to see the show. Not live here at where
And you
we
can
are,
watch
but
the games.
That is also very important.
that should probably be like the first thing that we do, like the allure of the whole event. But,
Yeah.
Yeah. Fan Zone, check it out, everybody. But now let's take a look at our lineup for today, because of course we will have 4 matches between 8 teams. First up, Leviathan versus T1. Then the historic rematch of Team Queso versus Sengoku. Burium United versus Flash Wolves, both from the SEA. And finally, Immortals versus Liberty. Beard on the line, NA.
Yep.
Please don't let me down.
Yup.
Please don't let me down. But I gotta ask my analyst, since I got you here, what matches are you most excited for today?
I'm going to go for that Sengoku Team Queso match. Obviously, it's
Yeah.
a rematch of the match that knocked Team Queso out of the Horizon Cup. These are 2 of the 3 teams that are still here from the Horizon Cup.
Yep.
So we're going to lose one of those veterans today. But Sengoku look a little weaker than they did last year when they made a very deep run into the tournament. And they've got a lot to prove against Team Queso, a team that we all expected them to beat. Team Queso have the expectations of the entire European fans on their side. It's one of the strongest rosters that region has ever produced. It's going to be a close one.
Sengoku not only made it out of their groups at Horizon Cup, but they knocked out Team Queso in doing that. So
Yeah.
that's like a big grudge match right there. But what you got, Rika? What's your most excited match for the day?
Oh, for me, it has to be the Buriram United versus Flash Wolves, right? Because as we said earlier, we haven't seen this matchup at the WCS, so the WCS fans are going to be so happy to finally see this matchup, especially there are a bunch of, roster changes different from before.
All right, well, that's the 2 of yours. I think it's going to be no surprise. I'm watching for that last series. It's going to be a long day.
It
But I
will
still
be.
have faith in Immortals
For
taking
sure.
down Liberty.
Excited for that series?
That's my one to watch. Okay,
His beer's on the line.
I would be like afraid.
it's multiple reasons to be excited. One, I'm excited to see my beard get longer
Yeah,
after
that's
today,
true,
because
that's true.
obviously we're gonna win. Second of all, it's just cool that like this is a rivalry beginning now,
Yeah.
at least from the NA side. We're definitely looking at the
I will
Brazilian
say-
teams and the players as we got something to prove.
I watched Omega play yesterday, and I do think that maybe the Brazilian teams or the Brazilian fans who are kind of beefing with North America have it wrong. It's a little bit cringe. Your teams are much better. You don't need to beef with North America. You can beef with other regions if you want.
Ooh. Beard and
he's-
burn.
the
Ooh.
problem is he's not wrong because we can see them on stage right now giving fist bumps to Sentinels. They're 2-6 against North America at international events so far. The Brazilian teams, they just keep making it happen, and there is a strong argument. Like TJ was saying, I know that we're kind of memeing it, or at least I am, but there's a strong argument right now that Brazil is the strongest Western region.
Wild Tour looks really good.
Yeah.
Not only do they have what we expected coming in, which is these hyper-organized team fights planned from the draft, but they've also been making really good calls on the map, playing very intelligently around map information. The way that they use vision to set up control has been really impressive. I think they're easily the strongest Western region.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Like, even before, back at the Horizon Cup, I looked at them as a region, like, 4th in the region.
Right.
And now I feel like they're really proving and solidifying that they're really, really up there.
So they'll be playing at the end of the day, but let's start off with our first match of the day. Leviathan, the #1 seed from LatAm's WOL, is facing elimination, as is their opponent, which is a very strong T1. This is the match that starts off the day.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see this matchup, mainly towards the Dragon Lane, right? I believe this matchup is going to be very heavy on BDG and Kite at the Dragon lane, just because BDG, this heavily favors him, just because T1 is so willing to give every single resource in the map to make him go huge. How does Kite match up to that? That's the question.
Well, I'll answer it's in the support matchup.
Okay.
Because Penguin has done a decent job of setting up, playing defense for BDG, but Billy over on Leviathan looked really good, even in a losing game earlier this tournament. Even with no resources, his set was finding sick engages, setting up team fights. If things are going a little bit better, I think Billy can be the key to opening up that lane for Leviathan.
Playing through the support carry, not necessarily something that we see every team pulling
Up
off.
for the gameplay. Billy finds the engage, gets the gold to his buddy.
Okay.
It's a little big brother.
I like it. I like it. I want to dive a little bit deeper, though, into the potential win conditions of each of these teams. We're starting to mention specific players, but let's start with the side on LatAm. If we're looking at Leviathan, what do we see their game plan coming into this one? TJ, I want to hear your thoughts as to what we can expect maybe from draft or from actual game executed strategy.
We haven't actually seen a successful game from Leviathan yet, which makes it difficult to understand how they want to be playing internationally. But we can talk regionally. What Leviathan have been really good at in their matchups in the finals, which they won in a game 7 in the WOL, has been finding the fights that they've set up for. They've got a really good top laner, Androck, who's always able to find gold leads on his top lane carries. He comes down into those first team fights around Dragon or around Rift Herald, ready to fight. On something like Darius, there was a really good Malphite game in there. He'll be able to win those team fights with gold lead in lane. And that's pretty difficult into T1.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, because T1, their defense for early game to mid game to reach, if they do plan on drafting scaling, is so hard to break. The way that they avoid fights when Leviathan wants these fights. I want to see how that interacts later.
And also in that top lane, you're playing into J-Jong.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about T1, you have BDG on the bottom side of the map, who's been really performing, and you have J-Jong on the top side of the map, who has been like the angel on their team, getting no resources in that top lane, not getting the support that Androck usually gets, and yet still it feels like every single game J-Jong is able to hit one of those plays that gives them a little bit more life, that, wins a sick team fight as a Riven. And you're like, okay, where did that come from? How does he have the gold? And the answer is, he's just been farming.
And outside of just the matchup stylistically between these two, it's also a big moment here for LatAm as a region, because this is the WL's final stand. They've gone 2-10 so far at Icons and are looking to pick up what could be their first ever international series win today. But for T1, it's all about living up to the expectations that we've put on them as a region. We had some pretty high expectations for the WCK coming into Icons. So now I want to bring the conversation into what we expect to happen today. Based on how the conversation has gone, I think I know where the predictions are leaning, but I want to get the predictions up on screen so we can start to talk about it as to why we're actually leaning one way or another. Bam!
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 Yeah, bam! T1 across the board. Okay, Rico, I want to start with you. Why do you have T1 taking this?
I think it's because they have everything covered. Like, if Leviathan's avenue is that early game, again, I talk about how they slow the game down, and again, putting all the resources onto BDG is the way to go. If they do that, it's an easy win, because every time they fight, BDG is going to kill everyone.
Okay, TJ?
I like Leviathan's odds if they can make the game messy, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
T1 have played some very slow gameplay so far, and versus some of the top teams, that's been a weakness, because they haven't been able to activate in the first 5 minutes. That's meant that they're not very good at those first couple of Dragon fights. But versus Leviathan, who tend to rely on the other team walking in to face check them at objectives, I think they're going to struggle to tie T1 down. The challenge is to find an objective, find a map state where T1 are forced to play them. And if you're behind in gold, if you're losing in lanes, if you're losing in the jungle, then that's never going to happen. T1 are going to be fine keeping as is. So the challenge for Leviathan is winning on the map, getting their jungler ahead early, getting a gold lead early, so that they can get the team fights they're so good at.
And that even goes back to the earlier point that you had made, TJ, about the way that we see teams finding success here at Icons, playing aggressive, playing for the early game. And I think the Leviathan is a team that can do that, and you're going to have to do something here to pick up the first ever international series win.
Yeah, I feel like you have to look at the earlier blueprints, which was the Ricks versus T1 series, where, yeah, T1, slow early game, but once it reaches the 5v5s at the Elder Drake, you gotta solidify that lead. You gotta make sure that that lead is solidified. 10K gold lead, that's your avenue to make sure that you win that game.
Exactly. So for all the LATAM fans out there, it is possible. Even though we're all saying T1 on this desk, I don't want them to feel like there's no chance that T1 would fall here.
I've got a window for you.
Okay.
That's the man in the middle. You see the fist?
Yep.
That's the most violence Core has committed all tournament. Because he's kind of not doing too well.
Because everybody just keeps banning his Ahri, that's why.
Okay,
Ahri,
but he's one of the carries, Riku.
That's true.
He's supposed to be one of the best players on this team,
That
and
is
we spent
true.
the entire early game not talking about him, not talking about JY, because the middle of this T1 map has been absolutely absent. Lumesh is one of the most experienced players in the WOL. He's been playing mobile esports for a very long time. If he can deliver against Core, continue shutting down that star mid laner, that's a window to open up the map. Because once you win mid lane, you have access to jungle, you have access to that gold lead we were talking about Leviathan needing to build.
And we've seen carries in the mid lane be very prevalent so far here at Icon, so it's not like that isn't possible. Things like Zed are piloted quite often.
Very prevalent, except for T1, where
Yeah.
Yes.
very lacking in the middle of the map, which has really hurt them so far.
Well, with that said, that's what our thoughts are for the first match of the day. But I am hearing that the players are set. The casters are ready. So that's all of us here at the Analyst Desk. We are ready to go. Leviathan versus T1 is coming up next. Icons 2022 starts now.
最后应该是我们 WCS 那一场。我的话应该是不会紧张，我会让你们知道为什么我们是 WCS 第2名。
ก็ถ้าพูดตรงไทยกับไต้หวันก็เป็นทีมที่ชิงดีชิงเด่นกันมาตลอดนะครับแล้วก็ค่อนข้างมั่นใจครับเพราะว่าก็เป็นเราศึกษาสไตล์ของ Fly Shoot มาเยอะมากๆ
你们准备被我们制裁吧？
ว่าน่าจะเป็นแมตช์ที่สนุกในแมตช์ครั้งต่อไป
O sea, la realidad es que T1 está un escalón más bajo que China. Pero no nos sentimos confiados contra un equipo de esa talla. Aparte, T1 es uno de los equipos más grandes del mundo.
그리고 그 페이커 선배님과 같은 그런 자리까지는 아니어도 이렇게 비교 대상이 될 수 있다는 거에 굉장히 좀 영광스럽게 생각하고 있기 때문에 여기서 만족하지 않고 저도 실력까지 닮는 그런 선수가 되도록 많이 노력하고 있습니다.
Como no tenemos nada que perder, vamos a jugar tranquilos. Porque cualquier equipo puede sorprender como lo hizo Brasil, así que no deberían estar confiados.
지금까지 올라오는데 굉장히 많은 일이 있었지만 우리는 사실 여기까지 올라온 것만으로 만족할 만한 사람들이 아니기 때문에 더 많이 올라가자.
Alright, it is time. Elimination round for both of these teams and the rest of the teams that we are seeing throughout our 4th day of group stage. And that means Hell's Devil, it is go time.
I am so excited, Rafa. You know I love these elimination days, right? Like, these are the days we're gonna see the best out of these teams. We haven't seen much from Leviathan yet, but I feel we're gonna see a lot from them today.
It's such a tough opponent to be up against Nova Esports, who is already boasting one of the best junglers in the tournament with Long. And you saw that Leviathan brought a lot of creativity to the draft in the early game plan, trying to shut him down. But the quick pace and the on-the-fly adaptation from Nova made it so that Leviathan just could not keep up.
But they had the creativity, right? Like, that's what it's about. These teams with that much creativity, we saw it from Omega Esports as well, the Ash Lux. I love to see that, because this is the way you can beat out teams that, you know, are better than you.
The other, on the other flip side too, is T1. That's another team that actually managed to take a game off of J-Team during the play-in stage, off of the back of BDG, who, when they gave him the tools and the resources to carry on the Lucian, something that we saw signature throughout T1's turning run throughout the WCK playoffs, both in the upper bracket and the lower bracket.
He is definitely one of the best ADCs in the tournament right now. So how do you play against it as Leviathan? How do you draft against that? We're going to see that right now as we head into the draft. So talking about Leviathan right now, I feel they haven't played to their strengths when they were up against Nova.
The other thing too for Leviathan is understanding what their own priorities are. I know the analyst desk was talking about, hey, Leviathan came up with a great game plan just to shut down Nova Esports' jungler. But the question is, what can Leviathan do to draft to support their own carries? I know Kite is someone famed from LATAM, one of the returning, if not the only returning LATAM pro from Horizon Cup back when he was on Ebro Gaming.
Very interesting. So he has the experience already. He's playing right now in Leviathan 2, the #1 seed of Latin America 2. And yeah, Leviathan banning away the Senna makes a lot of sense, but they also banned away the Lucian. Seems like they're a bit afraid of the Lucian. Core can play a great Lucian. BDG can play the Lucian in the ADC. We've seen both of it happens. But it's probably the BDG, right? The BDG Lucian.
T1 taking away power picks like the Singe and the Jace. I think a big one that I'm flagging right now is whether Leviathan are going to let go of the Camille. We already saw that Jong pulled out miracles on that champion in one of their games during the play-in stage.
Yeah, definitely. Jong is, I would say, one of the star players of T1. This guy was incredible. Whether it was on the Camille, on the Riven, he just absolutely did his job in the Baron lane. He's super aggressive, getting those kills, and T1 secures a Corki. This is a power pick. You know, every single team pretty much picks the Corki, and T1 just secured it for themselves.
Okay, Leviathan. Things like the Camille are open, but the Riven is also available. So I imagine that Jong would be comfortable taking the matchup of either stance. Leviathan, other things to consider, looking at perhaps Ziggs.
Yeah, definitely. Ziggs is also open, who we know is a very power pick, and Kha'Zix's first pick as well. About Ziggs though, we've seen a lot of teams pick the Ziggs very early on in the draft, and they did get punished for it by the champions that can counter the Ziggs. We saw Alistar's into the Ziggs, right? We saw Nasus into the Ziggs. Like, these are champions that Ziggs just can't deal with. So while it is a very good, super high priority pick, there's just so many counters, and if you compare Corki to that especially, like, you can't really counter Corki. Corki is just always good.
Corki is like the Swiss Army knife of champions right now. You can throw him into almost any composition. If you've got a dive system going on, Corki's got you with package. If you're trying to kite back, Corki's got you. He's got package to go backwards, and he's got the range to be able to supply backline damage.
And another champion that we need to talk about is the Gragas. Now that Kha'Zix got picked, we know how good of a combo the Kha'Zix Gragas is, because when Gragas uses his explosive casket, everyone gets separated. And then when you have a Kha'Zix, he's going to be picking all of them off. So the question is T1 going to give that? And they actually picked the Camille.
The priority was the set. Probably the best support pick for Billy in this tournament. Seems incredibly comfortable on it. But for Team 1, they can look for a jungle response right now against the Kha'Zix, or they can wait for the next phase.
So T1 just picked Camille. I feel like this could, this is a strong pick for them, right? Like Jong on that Camille, it's either the Riven or the Camille. But then if you look at Androck on the other, opposite side from Leviathan, and this is especially why I really love the Camille pick, because Androck loves to play those tanks. He loves to play the Malphite, he loves to play the Garens, right? He loves to play those types of champions. Camille is the type of champion that can deal with that, right? She does the true damage. So I feel T1 has done their homework, and that's actually a Riven. It seems like yet again, we're not gonna see Androck on those tanks.
Androck is saying, you know what? Give me the
changing it up.
carry-on-carry matchup, baby. Let me get it spicy down in the Baron lane.
Yeah, and also a Jax pick from T1. That's JY. That's gonna be JY on that Jax. And oh man, Jax kills into the late game. If there's one champion that can absolutely hard carry games, it's gonna be the Jax. And when you have a Kha'Zix against the Jax, you can shut him down in the early game. When you play aggressive, you can do that. And we know Leviathan can do that.
They made such a creative plan to shut down Nova's jungler and Long in their first game. Unfortunately for them, as we noted earlier, Nova were so good at being able to problem solve in the moment and think, okay, how do we get Long back online? And they did it within seconds.
And their plan worked. Like, that's the thing. Their plan worked in the minute. And exactly as you said, unfortunately afterwards it didn't work, but it worked. And we see a Ziggs ban as well. You talked about it, right? T1 doesn't want to have to deal with the Ziggs right now. Now that they picked the Jax, they picked the Camille, they don't want to have to dive super hard to catch up to that Ziggs.
Yeah, Leviathan are looking for a strong source of magic damage. Ziggs and Lux, not only the safety with the backline range, but also ways to get that initial burst off so that the Kha'Zix can pick off the
I was just going to say the Orianna, because the question is, who do you pick now? And it's really either Orianna or the Morgana, and we see it happen on both sides. The Orianna on Leviathan's side and the Morgana on T1's side. I actually really love this Orianna pick because her second ability provides that team-wide slow and team-wide buff. So in that late game, when she skills up, deals a lot of damage, she's going to be able to stop JY on that Jax by engaging.
Now, here's the question. Leviathan, we've talked about it before. Kite, he can play AP carries, but he prefers the marksman. He prefers to take something like the Lucian, like a more aggressive pick. This Orianna can still be flexed to Lumish. Lumish is fine playing any champion, being a team player for Leviathan. So, and if this is either a Corki or a Morgana, they don't have that much all-in threat. You could go with something super aggressive. I don't know if Kite plays Draven, but that would be pretty pog.
That would be pretty pog right here. Ooh, it's a Zed in the mid lane actually for Lumesh. Wow, I find that interesting.
That's also pog. I like that.
That's pog. That's fun to watch. And in the late game as well, like we saw it happen earlier, you have such good assassination potential. Not just that, he's going to be able to bait out those flashes, those stasis enchants, for them to have Androck on that Riven to go all in and Andy follow up. Like, he's going to be the tool that they need to bait out those important things in the game.
Double assassins for Leviathan means that it is all about the initial burst from Kite and Androck, being able to get the shockwave on top of the Riven all-in combo. If you get enough burst off, those two assassins can finish them off.
And even if they don't finish off with the all-in, you still have Kite on that Orianna, which is a massive late-game threat. If she goes for that Archangel Staff, she's gonna have the shielding. Unfortunately, she doesn't have an enchanter, but she's gonna be able to deal massive, massive sustained damage as well.
On the flip side for T1, this is a bread and butter composition for them. Strong scaling in the jungle for JY. Strong split pushing capabilities from Zhong in the Baron lane, and we've already seen this guy pull out quadra kills with this champion. This is going to be a huge challenge for the #1 seed from the WLL, but for T1, expectations are hard. They are one of 2 remaining seeds from Korea left in this tournament, and it is elimination on the line.
And Roster Y looked like a really powerful team, right? So T1 has to step up their game to show
they want to be just like them.
It's not just Roster Y, it's also T1 from Korea.
Oh, here we go. Game 1. Elimination. T1 and Leviathan taking to the Rift here. And for the early game, Hells, there's not much proactivity and agency from these 2 junglers in particular.
Definitely. I don't think there's going to be that much happening, especially from the side of T1. You know, you're playing that Jax, you're going to be farming up a lot. And if you look at all of their champions, right, Corki is not that strong during the stage. Zhong on that Camille, neither is he. BDG on the Morgana. These guys want to scale into the late game. But if you look at Leviathan, right, it's going to be a bit hard to be aggressive since you have that Orianna as well. It's not that strong of a late or early game champion. But they have to make the moves. Lumesh on that Zed, whenever he reaches level 5, I want to see Leviathan go.
So we're looking at wake-ups, probably around 2.5 minutes, where the solo lanes come online at level 5.
Definitely. Like right now, probably not much is going to happen. And as I'm saying that, Bailey seems to be looking for a little bit of aggression. But when you have that Dragon lane matchup, there's not much that's going to be happening, right? It's a Morgana against an Orianna. And supports are Gragas and a set. Like, sure, a set can be aggressive, but you don't have that big follow-up. So it's probably going to be a very safe lane right there. Unless we see some ganking happening, there's probably not much that
is going to be happening. Even in the Baron lane right here, which is Jong against Android, this is just kind of a safe matchup.
Yeah, the pathing from JY indicates that he wants to start hovering Jong for the next
Andy as
couple
well.
of minutes. You also have these two mages in the bottom side of the map, which allows both the supports to come online and start roaming to the opposite side.
Definitely, and that's what I want to see from Leviathan, right? Like, they have to make those crazy plays. And as I'm talking, it's Andy that's looking for a kill, but Core just escapes very easily.
Valkyrie gets him out alive, and Andy doesn't bolster that much damage, especially when he is surrounded by minions, so you don't get the isolation damage.
So JY is invading, but Leviathan knows that. They have vision right there, and then on the opposite side, there's vision on the other blue buff as well. So both teams know what's going on. Both teams seems to be shaking hands, and just as you said, it's like both teams are trying to get to that late game right now.
At this point, Leviathan just making sure that they don't take unnecessary risks against T1. Leviathan going back to what got them to the #1 seed in WOL, and Androck.
Wow. Showing who's boss in the Baron lane right now. He just destroyed Jong right there, and he could be looking for that kill with his fast enough, but unfortunately he's just not quite fast enough. Still a little win for Leviathan, because Jong did lose 3 minions, which is like 200 gold. Not that much, but it's still a win.
And Androck used the Ignite. Jong making sure that he didn't burn any summoner spells, so he has a combat summoner advantage the next time he comes back into lane.
Definitely, and it's Leviathan sitting on a 500 gold, and that's because of those tiny little plays that they've made. It's great to see, though. They are on the upper hand, right? Like, even though it's not that much, it still matters when you're ahead with that amount of gold, because you're just doing a tiny bit better in the game, and when you're up against a team like T1, who is supposedly going to be a better team, it's great.
Right now, Billy has already rotated away from the dragon side of the map. He's here to support maybe for a 3-man gank total, but
Penguin is there as well. Yeah, Penguin is there as well. T1 knows what's up, right? They're not going to fall for the Leviathan trap. It seems like they just really, really know what's up. And, I mean, looking at their composition, so scary in the late game. And they're just doing such a good job playing out this early game, making sure Jong doesn't die to Androck, because we've seen it happen where a Baron laner gets super ahead, and then the Baron laner just hard carries the game. So T1 is just making sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, usually Jong has, as the analyst has pointed out, Jong has been on the weak side of receiving and absorbing so much pressure. And the fact that he's still been able to come out on top in a lot of those games just goes to show how remarkable of a laner and a player Jong is for this team.
Oh yeah, definitely. And T1 taking their own jungle right here. Leviathan has vision on that jungle. Not anymore, however, but this is important information. Andy now knows that JY is on the bottom side of the map. He could potentially be looking for some aggression on the opposite side of the map, but yet again, it seems like they're just shaking hands, want to go back, get their items, and get to the late game.
Already, first items are coming in at the 4-minute mark. We're about a minute away from the first 2 objectives. Yeah, I was going to point that out to you. Are you a fan?
No. I would have loved to see a lethality item, you know, the Yumos Ghost Plate, the Duskblade of Drakta, which gives him so much more damage, so much more explosive draw damage during teamfights. Like, sure, right now, he's going to be good during split pushes, but I feel like that's not what Leviathan needs. Leviathan needs that explosive team fighting very early on in the game, before the Jax skills, before the Morgana skills, before the Camille skills. When you have Hullbreaker, that's not going to happen.
Androck is in a world of trouble now, locked in the Hextech ultimatum. Counter-Strike comes in, and it's just easy pickings. T1 strike with first blood.
Phenomenal gank from T1 right there. Jong instantly using his ultimate. JY going right after him, using his flash and getting that kill. This is the lead that T1 needs. Jong has a little bit of a gold lead now, but it's especially JY with the gold lead right now, since he got a kill.
Yeah, the benefactor of that gank, and he's going right to the Herald as well. Great understanding from T1. They know what their conditions are. Get as much gold, snowball the Jax and the Camille. But in this fight, explosive cast from Penguin is separating the moments package there, tries to split up the rest of the fight, and he commits to the dragon, is able to secure it, but at the cost of Billy's life.
Oh, T1 did not want to give that dragon for free. They took the Rift Herald, and Core and Lumesh. You know, that's the better of the whole breakers, but JY keeps going.
He's sending the Rift Herald right into the mid lane. If TJ was on the cast, he'd say, that's a WCK Herald Rift mark.
They didn't get the mid lane turret, however, which I feel is a bit of a loss for T1, because Leviathan was able to secure that Infernal Dragon, which does scale very well into the late game. And I feel it's really important that they actually denied it from T1 as well. And T1 also takes a whole turret.
The pressure they created off of the Herald in the mid lane, forcing Leviathan to regroup after the collapse of the dragon, means that they could not defend every single turret. And first brick goes over to T1, and we already see 2 kills, one turret, a 2,000 gold swing.
And T1 also got that mid lane turret to a low amount of HP. So just with a little bit of pressure, they're also going to be able to get that mid lane turret. So very, very well played by T1 right now. But Leviathan didn't really lose that much, because if you look at the gold count, that's like a 1.5k gold lead for T1. And Leviathan took that Infernal Dragon, which is absolutely amazing to get on Kite. And if we look at Kite's build as well, he's going for the late game approach. He's taking that Archangel Staff, which takes a while to scale up. But when it does scale up, Rafa, it's a massive Orianna.
We have seen quite many games this week, Hells, throughout, where no matter what happened in the first 10, 12 minutes of the game, teams took it to the late game and said, okay, we're flipping it on Elder. And I'm pretty sure that is where Leviathan is going to be comfortable.
Oh!
Lumesh looking for the all-in on the core, but it's just a simple backstep, and he's out of there.
And that's the power of the Hullbreaker, right? Like, as Billy tries to take a fighter as well, you cannot kill a Hullbreaker, Corki.
Oh, we've seen this story before. Hextech Ultimatum is such a good tool.
Oh, you need stasis, Leviathan. You need a stasis enchant, and Penguin goes in?
He's just creating more chaos in the jungle, saying, hey, you can't get to the tower. We're taking it for free.
Wow, T1 is just pushing their advantage right now. It's crazy to see that a late game composition is pushing their advantage. And is that JY looking for a fight again?
He does not stop on the aggression here, Hells. Flashing away from the last turret shot. That is 4 kills to JY.
Oh, JY is crazy. He's a maniac. He gets everything. The fact that he just dived the turret like that, knowing that he's up against a Zed who has the shadows, but he just did it anyways. He went for the dive, used his flash, and got the kill.
All right, Hells. If you wanted to talk to the Latin American fan base, and you gave them a picture of the stats right now, are they slamming the alert button?
Yeah. They are slamming the alert button. I'm not saying it's over, but they are slamming the alert button. I mean, if you look at this game, you're up against T1, who is such a strong team. They're winning against you with a late game composition. Like, everything has to be on Kite right now. He has to carry this game in the late game. You can see T1 is going to look for Lumesh again.
Lumesh has that mark available. T1, they might have overextended for this one. Penguin can't get in there. Shockwave right on time with the stasis timing as well. Leviathan answer back for the first kill.
Rafa, that's 4 ultimates for JY. Leviathan just used 4 of their ultimates to just kill a single champion from T1.
Did they get him?
They got him. They got him.
It worked, baby.
It worked. But that really shows how hard it is for Leviathan to just take care of JY on that Jax right now. And that's just an early game Jax sitting on 1 item. He's going for that death stance as well, which means he's not respecting Kite on that Orianna yet. He's taking a death stance to soak up that attack damage from all of the other champions, and it's going to be hard to kill him unless Kite does a phenomenal job during those team fights.
So what you're saying is Leviathan need to find a way to just get a surplus of gold into Kite's pockets.
Definitely. He needs the gold. He needs to do the damage, especially because, Jong is just, doing a lot of damage right there.
On forward.
It's crazy. Even in a 1 versus 3, he seems fearless.
He's got Hextech Ultimatum. He's got plenty of tools to outplay people at this point in the game and has a solid 1,000 gold in terms of stats over everyone else.
He has a Hullbreaker as well. Like, you can just see it. Leviathan is desperately trying to kill him. But meanwhile, on the opposite side of the map is JY taking a free Rift Herald.
And this is what JY and Jong have been so good historically, even during the inception of the WCK. They'll often take a scaling jungler and a split push able Baron laner, and then just take opposite sides of the map and just pull teams apart.
And they put Jong on a Hullbreaker as well. So even though Core on the Corki has a Hullbreaker, just because, like what you said, yes, Jong picked up the Hullbreaker as well to apply pressure on the opposite side of the map so they can get free objectives. So even though, T1 is probably not going to be the strongest during teamfights, since they have 2 Hullbreakers, they make it worth because they're securing the objectives for it.
Lumesh is on duty here, answering against Core, who, with that Hullbreaker, makes things a little bit more difficult to assassinate and beyond the exhaust. You put a stasis on top of that Corki, I think it's going to be very difficult for Lumesh for quite some time to take down.
Yeah, definitely. And we can see it already. JY has the death stance ready. I don't think Leviathan has a single chance to take this fight right now because their champions just cannot take care of JY right now. It seems like they are actually still going to take the fight, but let's see how it goes.
It's tough to get in. Penguin is quite the bouncer at the moment. They cannot get into the club.
Yeah, they can't even go in. It's just a free dragon for T1 right now. And T1 just pushing their lead so incredibly well, just taking every single objective. They got heralds, they got dragons, they're taking turrets. They already took 3 turrets as opposed to the 0 turrets from Leviathan. This is just, it's not like what we've seen from the WRL teams, but this is domination from T1.
T1, a very clean showing throughout this first game. Aside from the first kill, but it did come at the cost of 4 ultimates from Leviathan. Oh, Penguin.
I don't think he dies.
He should be able to get out of this one, right? The Ignite is ticking down, and he's got the damage reduction from that second ability. He's fine.
And the Aftershock. That rune single-handedly saved his life. He got tankier when he dispositioned Lumesh right there, and that saved his life. And unfortunately for Lumesh, wasn't able to take that pretty important kill as well on Penguin, because Leviathan just needs to get those kills. They need to get that gold, because if that doesn't happen, the gold is just going to keep accelerating towards T1 right now.
Yeah, sitting at 5,000 for T1 at the moment, almost 12 minutes into the game, which means the third dragon will be coming online within the next 2 minutes.
Jong.
And it's all T1 who are focusing down the control in the upper side of the jungle. This Hextech Ultimatum and a beautiful explosive cast leaves no response for Leviathan.
It didn't allow Bailey to do anything. He could not use a single ability because he got CC'd so often. JY is still very aggressively positioned in the jungle right there. And yet again, T1, if they fight is done, and everyone goes to their own lane. Jong moving to the bot lane. We see Penguin in the mid lane and JY pushing the top lane. Just, they're everywhere.
Cannot stop the split push pressure, Hells. T1,
oh,
they are pulling Leviathan on the bottom side of the map and on the top side of the map as
and
well.
T1 is 8,000 gold ahead right now. And if you look at this team gold, like, look at the amount of gold that T1 has. 4 of their carry champions have so much more gold than Leviathan. And even if you look at Core compared to Kite, which is the closest one, Core is 1.2k ahead, Rafa. It's crazy. This is a massive lead.
Damn. That stonks right there.
That definitely does. That hurts Leviathan. Like, as I said, and even if they reach the late game, like, how do you win against that composition of T1 right now? And T1 is looking for even more aggression.
They can just force Leviathan out of their own jungle. It doesn't belong to them anymore.
It's crazy, and they even put their tower in the bot lane, but not all of them are in the bot lane. It's Jong in the mid lane. This is what we saw from the WRTUs, but Rock is gonna go in. Ooh. Nope.
The Rift Herald gets one turret. Jong and Penguin looking for the flank here. Explosive cast already lands onto Billy, separated from the rest of the members of Leviathan, trapped in that Hextech Ultimatum, and Lumish trying to respond with the Death Mark, doesn't get any damage. Shockwave flips onto one, gets a flash out of BDG, but the rest of Leviathan, they are just forced to respond to JY, who is smacking the tower.
Oh my god, he just takes the inhibitor turret as well.
Solo in a 1v4 as well, he doesn't care.
Wow, I was just gonna say that Leviathan could potentially still win this game, as they were dealing a lot of damage during those team fights. Kite was doing a good job, and he finally finished the Seraph's Embrace, but that's an inhibitor turret gone already, Rafa.
Time seems to have run out for Leviathan. Obviously, there's still big late game objectives like the Elder Dragon and the Baron, but when you have super minions pushing into the base, it is going to be so difficult.
And as we look into this replay, you can see, right, BDG on that Morgana just didn't allow Androck to go in. But Leviathan did do a good amount of damage. Even though Billy got caught here, if you look at Kite, he was positioning very, very well. He was sitting in the backline right there and dealing so much damage with his abilities. And it's like, you don't really see it until you pay attention to it. But Kite dealt so much damage during that team fight. And again, this is their one-way ticket to victory this game. When the Elder spawns, it's going to be all up to Kite to carry the game.
Big shoes to fill. Kite being the only remaining member from LATAM's seed at Horizon Cup in Ebro Gaming, trying to step up and be the person that can put in the damage for Leviathan.
Oh yeah, definitely. And but T1 is not gonna give this chance, right? Here you can see it, the damage dealt. Exactly. Kite dealt 3.7 thousand damage during the fight, which is a lot of damage. So you can see the potential of that Orianna on Leviathan right now. This damage is gonna be doubled if he's able to get 4 items. He has 2 items right now. When he gets 4 and 5 items, like, I still see a way for Leviathan winning this game. It's just up to Kite right now.
Yeah, the big difficulty, though, for Leviathan is without that inhibitor, super minions always pouring in means that someone has to always be tending to the lane.
And it's Lumesh. Lumesh is constantly going to have to take care of it. He has that hull breaker, because if he doesn't, then it's going to be Jong sitting in that lane, and you cannot deal with it. And, I mean, T1 is just not giving a single chance to Leviathan to make a comeback. And I'm sure they'll even push towards this inhibitor right here.
Pressure is absolutely relentless from T1.
Crazy.
Not knocking on the inhibitor doors quite yet, but still, they have full control of this jungle quadrant.
And the dragon is spawning, Baron is up, and sure, Lumesh got a turret, but it doesn't really matter when you're 8,000 gold behind. All Leviathan needs to do right now is try to delay whatever happens. Try to delay turret takes, but you can see it, T1 won't delay anything. The dragon spawns, the next second they're on it already.
Boom. I mean, for Leviathan, this isn't the game-winning dragon quite yet, but it's another stat buff that T1 are going to take graciously.
Yeah, definitely. And Kite's sitting on 3 items right now. He picked up that all-important Rabadon's Death Cap, which is going to give him so much more damage. So yet again, Leviathan put all your resources on Kite, give him as much gold as you can, play around him, protect him in team fights, and they could win a team fight in this game right now.
Take a moment to breathe here, Hells, because Leviathan are now forced to be poised around this Baron. This would be the next big objective that T1 will start just to force Leviathan to come out of the safety of their base.
And JY picked up a Guardian Angels up, but they just go in immediately.
Hextech ultimatum onto Billy, using the Haymaker shield. It's all for naught. Explosive cast pushes back members of Leviathan back into the quadrants of the jungle. The rest of Leviathan trying to regroup, trying to collapse onto T1, but the strength in numbers is with the Korean squad. They're the powerhouses in this match.
Kite was not even there, Rafa. What an absolutely tragic fight for Leviathan that was, because, again, T1 doesn't give them the chance to do what they want. They don't give them the chance, and it's T1 taking the very first game in the series right now. They just destroyed the #1 seed from the WR from Latin America, and this team is looking like a banger right now.
Yeah, this such a clean showing from T1, easily taking out Leviathan in a quick and quite stylishly fashion.
Wow, that was impressive. That really showed how good T1 is. And honestly, it shows that T1 evolved on the stage, because T1 did lose a series against Rix, and although they did win against them afterwards, this feels like a different T1 to me, Rafa.
There's something about facing extremely tough opponents and losing games that tends to bring up a whole other level in you.
And it seems like it happened with T1, because this was a clean T1. They applied pressure, like they just did not give a single chance to Leviathan to do anything.
The closest that I could see resemblance from T1 was back in their 3rd seed qualifier for Icons against GP during the WCK. 3 straight wins back to back. This was the clinical manner that they were able to execute on back-to-back games. And against Leviathan, I mean, we knew that there was a plan for them in the late game, but they could not endure as long as they wanted to. So, you know, going into game 2, potentially Leviathan's last game on the line here. Kangas, you got to tell me, bro, is there any hope for the Latinos?
Hey, this is the hope. Every LATAM team so far has gotten 1 win, except for Leviathan. So they got to get this win.
They got to get 1 win at least.
They're going to get 1. Everyone's got 1 and 4. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I got the script right here, Rob. Don't worry. I got you covered. I got you covered right now.
It says, do not share, do not acknowledge the existence of this
Oh
script.
my god.
Oh.
Says right there, guys. Come on.
I don't host as much as D-Gun or Mika, so I don't read the fine print on these cards. Let's talk.
It's in red letters. It's
Bold
like
and italicized.
really
You're not
big.
supposed to out me like this, TJ.
Sorry,
I would like them to invite me back.
We can just
T1
brush past it, pretend you never said anything.
T1 picking up the win here.
Like this, so
Yeah.
we're just
like,
moving on. T1 picking up the win here.
We've moved past. So let's talk about the way that T1 was able to get that victory. Did it match expectations, Riku?
Oh yeah, absolutely, right? This is definitely one of their configurations. When we look back at the WCK, it was, you know, sometimes we see BDG on the carry, but sometimes we see him on the support that supports JY. He was on the Morgana, and it's not on the Graves this time for JY. He is on that Jax, and I liked how they played. It was very stable. They knew what to do, and this is basically, again, one of their play styles, and they did it cleanly.
Steve, can you ask me that question?
What did T1 do?
No, the same question.
I don't remember how I worded the question. What did T1
Did they
do?
match your
Did they
expectations?
match your expectations? There we go.
There, yeah.
Well, thank you for asking, Steve. No, it totally surprised me because we saw some early game aggression. And so they did win in the way that we expected them to. They were obviously the favorites in this match, but these early swings from T1 actually really impressed me, Rika. And seeing like that Jax start off the game with JY leading the team fights, using the Jax not for his early game damage, but for that early game counter-strike AoE stun.
Yep.
We've seen that a couple of times from Nova Esports.
Yes.
They gave Long the Jax and accomplished the same thing. 0711 did this, and it gives early gold to the Jax without relying on him to do damage, because he gets the big stun, that turns into a kill, and he gets the assist.
Yeah, and it's so perfect against the composition of Leviathan. 1, 2, 3?
Yeah.
Easy. So it just works so well with the composition of Leviathan, right? Just because everyone's practically AD on their side, except for the Orianna. So that counter-strike is going to get a lot of value once you enter the fight. One thing, though, the shining light at the end of the tunnel is...
I can't clap. I got things here.
I'll hold it.
That's okay. Go clap.
Yeah.
Good job.
I hope the mic picked that up.
Androck at top side. He was actually winning the 1v1 against Jaejong, but you know, this is a 5v5 game. JY entered that 1v1, made it into a 1v2, and that's how we got the lead at topside.
And TJ, we talked about the early game here from T1, but what was the win condition that we set up for Leviathan? It was play aggressive, play for that early game, and I think that the draft kind of set them up for that, but maybe they weren't expecting T1 to be so aggressive.
So, I think that the option was there, but it needed to come through the mid lane or through the top lane.
Okay.
Where they have big burst damage. And you're either using your Riven to start team fights, land good AoE, or you're using your Zed, in which you get the Zed in opening kill, they have enough gold to burst, and you can snowball that. Those are the two lanes I want to see them play through. Instead, Leviathan, Andy, on that Kha'Zix is early ganking the bottom lane, where, yeah, Billy looks real good on the set, but also it's an Orianna.
Yeah.
And the Orianna's just not going to do anything, at least until they complete first item Ludens. So Kite got a whole bunch of that early attention, got a whole bunch of early setup, and nothing was ever going to really come from it, especially versus a Morgana.
Yeah.
So I think that was a little bit of misdirected resources from Leviathan.
Interesting, though, when we're talking about how the early game went, that it was Androck getting the best of the top lane. When we looked at the damage charts, there is actually the Riven that did second least on the team behind the set support, which is understandable.
Yeah.
They still were able to output some damage there, but like you were saying, TJ, if they had played through to the Baron lane, maybe that would have worked better for Leviathan as a long win condition.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been the angle, right? You can imagine a world where Andy is going to invest resources on top side instead of bot, because that's, I believe, a gankable lane. The fact that Androck has won that early game, that big 1v1, I feel like he was setting up for that finish kill, for that dive potential, especially if they're on red side.
They'd seen too many T1 games where Jaejoong's playing weak side and still getting kills. They're like, no, we're not going to give him extra people to kill, even if Androck's doing well.
Well, we did see that from T1, right? We saw exactly that, where Jaejoong didn't have a whole ton of resources, still won that lane. Even though it did get dicey, he still won that lane. He still came out on top, was really big in the team fights. And it's becoming a very consistent threat. The other marker we were looking for from T1, does core become a factor? He had a champion that was pretty good for it.
Yeah.
He survived his lane against the Zed, but the Corki never really took over the game or was impressive.
Because basically after you get death marked, you just Valkyrie away, and then you basically deny any incoming burst damage.
Yeah, you can still do damage as a Corki. Just reposition, get to
Wave
safety.
clear.
Don't die to the assassins. That's a big thing here. Okay,
Ooh,
we're warming up.
It's back again. They did this the other day, and it didn't work that time. But Leviathan hyping themselves up.
Great, yeah.
You know, you have to reset mental
You do
after a
have
game one like that. And again, a reminder that a win here would feel fantastic against T1, a very strong historical organization in all of esports. But also, the other two representative, Furious and Samina, were able to pick up wins themselves. Furious, of course, the big one, taking a win off of one of the WRL representatives in Nova. So you're chasing that win, and then after that, you're chasing the first series win for the region. There's a lot weighing on the shoulders of these players, so it's cool to see them have this kind of approach. Shake it out, baby.
Yeah, shake it out.
Give me something aggressive in the bottom lane. That's my
Okay.
draft call. Because we saw Billy look good, we saw Andy want to gank the bottom lane. The problem was just that there was no Orianna there.
Yeah.
And they had set, they had Kha'Zix down there ready to go, and then you've got an Orianna who's just like, phew.
I'll do like
damage early game.
200. Every couple seconds, I'll throw in a little bit of damage on top.
Give me something aggressive in the bottom lane. Give me something, if it doesn't have CC, like the Morgana would be an obvious one if you want to start fights down bottom. We've seen Lux, Morgana as those AP carry options on the bottom side of the map, or just something that can scale off of that attention.
Yeah, I agree with you, TJ. The fact that, again,
Thank you.
we saw Kite play an amazing
This
Varus.
never I'm gonna have to deal with this all day.
We always agree. We always agree. But yes, I believe the Lucian is going to be constantly banned in this series just because you do not want to give that away to BDG, right? He's very scary. But at the same time, Kite is also an amazing Varus player. We saw that in the finals of the WOL, and he was very consistent. Even though they were losing games in that series, his KDA still looked really good.
And that is the other option. Rather than putting that attention in the bottom lane, you could put Kite on Varus and say, okay, stand behind the turret.
Yep.
Guess what? Billy's free. He's unchained. He can be anywhere on the map.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, Varus can still do some damage. And once you're level 5, we're talking about CC, being able to set up something like a Kha'Zix. You can actually add a lot of damage on top of that. Assist the Kha'Zix going for those kills. So those are options. And now we're going to see what they're going to lean into as pick and ban will be starting here shortly, and we'll have the opportunity to cover that one. I think that the big thing for me, when we look at player performances, JY was the one that was popping off incredibly from T1 side. We saw him even push that bottom inhibitor and say, my life doesn't matter. I'm just going to take the objective and then set my team up for success there. I think that's another thing Leviathan needs to worry about. How do you shut down JY?
That's the scary part, right? Because you can imagine T1 having a very strong carry, such as BDG, but he can also play supportive to make sure that the rest of the lanes, including Core as well, especially when he uses the Ahri, he's going to be landing all those charms to set up for JY. So curious to see what kind of T1 we're going to be seeing in this draft to solidify this 2-0.
And we're still missing that element for me of Core on duelists.
Yeah.
Hasn't gotten his Ahri yet, but also didn't look great on the Corki. Not a problem for the team. It was a pretty easy game for T1 that they got off to a very good start, so it's not a great source of data. I'm looking to see Core on a duelist here in order to allay some of my doubts about T1 if they're able to advance after this one.
This is your opportunity to show what you got for Core. I mean, we even saw in that intro video, he was saying, people are comparing me to Faker online. We got similar glasses, hairstyle, and he's saying, I'm trying to live up to kind of his mental he's put on.
Regionally, he did look really good. I'm not gonna compare him to Faker. Regionally, he did look really good. So it's a disappointment for T1 that on the international stage, he can't or hasn't delivered so far. There are a fair number of comparisons. I know as a North American fan, you're quite used to us sending very mechanically talented mid laners to the international stage where they learn that it's quite hard to bully people in lane on the international stage. And I do wonder if that's happening to Core here. The other thing worth mentioning, of course, this is Leviathan's elimination game. They are up against being knocked out of Icons. This is their very last chance to make a dent on this international stage.
Yeah, this is it, right? If they have pocket picks, this is the time to release it. Yuumi now has been unlocked, and Yuumi has been paired with so many pairs, either with a hyper carry like the Jax, or the Xayah like what we saw last time yesterday with RRQ, where they were able to take a game off of J-Team. So no matter what combo they're going to do, they have to execute this aggressively. I swear, Billy has to run everywhere across the map to make sure that they get the picks that they need.
And Billy has been one of the players we've been praising as a standout. It does appear he's been swapped out here.
Yeah.
We bring in Yuna. Billy playing a ton of the more engaged characters. This Enchanter switch may be the reason for that. You bring in Yuna to play the Yuumi and try and pair it with something that will accelerate that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe this is the time Kite's going to play a Kai'Sa or a Vayne, possibly. It's going to be scary when you're up against T1 Singed and Kha'Zix that's going to flip you and burst you down.
Give me an Ashe. That's my call.
I want a Vayne! Oh, never mind. There's a Jax. We didn't get anything.
That might be the first time I've ever heard the two of you disagree on something.
True.
Wow.
And it's just as good that we saw the Garen and the Jax come through, because we now know that the Yuumi is paying attention to that top side of the map, and me and Riku don't need to fight to the death.
Yeah, I think this is very clear that this is a Yuumi into the Jax. Make sure that he doesn't die. He dives in, counter-strike, boom, final chapter.
Which means it's a very good game for the Varus. It's a very good game for the Ziggs.
Speaking of the Varus.
Stuff that can play very defensively on that bottom side of the map, because Kite very likely is not going to get a ton of attention. Worth mentioning also, the pickup of the Jax here takes the Jax away from T1. JY drifting over to the Kha'Zix, one of his favorite picks, composed very well with the Varus.
One thing that I want to see from Leviathan, though, is wave clear, because how can Yuna move around the map if you do not have wave clear, if you do not have priority? So I feel like they're lacking a Ziggs. They're lacking wave clear, basically.
Yeah, the Morgana banned out. I wouldn't be surprised if T1 go for that Ziggs ban next.
Ziggs would make sense here. The big thing, of course, is without wave clear, without the ability to kill minions very easily, you can't justify the absence of one of those players in the form of the Yuumi from your lanes. If they're being shoved in, if your AD carry player is buried underneath the base, they can't do anything. Interesting, T1 do agree with our read at the end of the last game, ban out both the Lux and the Morgana, those kill lanes that are so dangerous early. Kill lanes that shouldn't really have ranged access to the Varus, which is kind of interesting to me. Varus very good into both those characters, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that means it's T1 saying, okay, Kite, go play Ziggs instead. And that's gonna be scary because they're gonna lock in Varus Thresh. Again, I repeat, the most oppressive Dragon lane early when it comes to early aggression.
And what all this says to me is that this is a Varus trap. This is something that the Korean region was running at the very beginning of this season. It's about Core playing more supportive on the Singed. It's about JY finishing off but not starting the kills. As BDG on the Varus is going to be the majority of the team's damage, he's going to try and find people, poke them down, while the rest of the team distracts, and then you have JY finish off those low HP targets once they're dropped low.
This is something we've seen a lot of teams actually pivot towards. When we see the Singed locked in, they'll actually go for the Garen mid lane to answer that. Can still just catch the waves, be just fine. You're never really going to be killed with the Orianna set up for the Dragon lane.
Okay, when I said wave clear, I didn't really think of Orianna. Yes, Orianna has decent amount of wave clear, but not as powerful as Lux, Morgana, and Ziggs. This is something where they're gonna want that big wombo combo. They're gonna want to put all the shields, the healing, with 2 massive bodyguards, and this works out so well for Leviathan, just because, again, all of the Spinies, everyone is melee on T1 except for the Varus. So this is a really nice composition when we look at the 5v5.
Yeah, the Orianna is going to be another way to boost up a Jax or a Garen in teamfights, going to enable them to access the backlines. And that backline is for T1 going to be BDG on the Varus. It's all about him to play defense and do the majority of the damage for T1.
A lot of beefy characters on the side of Leviathan. T1 about to take down LATAM's last seed. Let's send it over to Rafa and Hell's Devils to get us into game.
Kapow!
Woohoo!
Kapow!
Wachow!
Wachow! Kablam! More sound effects.
Shazam!
Shazam! Ooh,
I like that one.
I like Shazam.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Thanks again, Kangas, Riku, and TJ. This is match point for T1 and Leviathan. This could be their last game on the international stage.
And it would be so sad for Leviathan to lose this one because they still haven't really showed us anything. I feel they have something to show us. They come out with that Orianna again, and I like this composition of them though. They've drafted something real good here.
So a lot of melees. Something that you were noting about is that T1, although the Kha'Zix is not going to have as great of a time into triple melees, and then of course a Yuumi who can just attach to whoever is the strongest, beefiest bruiser at the time.
Singed. It's going to be a problem.
Yep.
Singed is going to be a massive problem to deal with for Leviathan because Singed can just run right through that composition. There is no ranged champions. There is no real champions that can stop him. I mean, besides the Orianna, but Orianna cannot stop a Singed. Singed is going to run right through whatever Orianna does. So that is going to be the one big problem Leviathan has to be able to deal with. But besides that, they have drafted a pretty solid composition, and this is going to be such a nice game. But I still really loved how they drafted in this game because they banned out that Camille, which was a very huge problem for them last game.
Yes, the John Camille had to be stopped from Leviathan if they wanted a chance to get back into this game. But T1 say, I mean, you got the Camille, bro, but I still got a Riven, man, in my back pocket. And
yeah, those are the 2 champions that we talked about, right? It's the Camille and the Riven. He got either of them. So yet again, Jong is going to be super scary. And as we head into the game, it's also the Jax taken away from JY. And I love seeing that from Leviathan too, because this was such an important tool for JY for his success in the game.
The other thing too for T1 is the fact that they can leverage this Riven and snowball it as much as they did. Oh.
I like this. I like this. T1 is waiting. They're waiting for Kite. They're going to catch him with a hook. Oh, does Kite see it coming? It seems like he sees it coming. I love that.
He knows something's up.
He knows. He knows. Amazing.
The spider senses were tingling on that one. That Kite's like, something's not right.
Something is off, right? I'm up against a Thresh. I should not face check that push. And it's a Darius mid lane, by the way, which I find very interesting to see against that Singed.
Yeah, that's...
Oh, another thing to note, it's Androck on a tank finally. Finally! 4th game, he does it!
He did give us a Garen game earlier this week, but I know the preference for you, Hells, has been put Androck on a big, beefy bruiser, big tank that can absorb pressure, and then allow Lumish to be the one that can be put in the carry range.
And I love how he has a barrier as well. Like, he is the tank. He is a barrier. All he does is tanking. You know, no ignite. Because normally you see an ignite on the Garen, and especially against the Riven, you don't want to do that because she has her 3rd ability to get a barrier. Right here, by the way, looking at the Dragon lane. Oh, that was a very shot. For some reason, I thought that was a Thresh hook. It kind of hit me in the heart. You know,
it just caught you off guard. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. But as you were saying, you know, because the fact that Androck can absorb pressure, can tank up in this lane. The pressure on Andy should be playing towards either Lumish in the mid lane or once again through the bottom side of the map.
So JY is playing that Kha'Zix, but if you actually look at that composition of Leviathan, then Kha'Zix is going to have such a hard time against it, and BDG is in a little bit of trouble, but he just makes it out alive.
Just taking advantage the fact that Penguin was on a roam timer. Once they see the mid lane, say, yo, BDG, you can't walk up this far, buddy.
Definitely.
Back up.
Yeah, back up. Back the hell up. And Leviathan, yet again, has great late game scaling with Kite right now, and Lumesh 1v1 in core, and he gets him!
Wait, he has 5 stacks. He's not level 5, but this is going to threaten at least a barrier out of core.
Ooh, I said flash, but if he flashed, he would have died. It's funny, because core had a barrier. Very, very well played by Lumesh to see that coming. He could still dive him right there. This is a great lane for Lumesh right now. He's going to be able to push out this wave as well and make core lose a lot of farm.
And I think this is, once again, the ingenuity from Leviathan showing here. Being able to get Lumesh onto a pick like Darius. I think this is the first time ever that we have seen a Darius mid in competitive Wild Rift.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna be such a good pick here as well because of that composition they're up against, right? Like Darius against the Riven, against the Singed, against the Thresh. Darius is able to deal with those types of champions while being such a tanky frontline for his team as well. Yet again, like, I really love this draft from Leviathan, but then you have BDG sitting on that Varus. Varus is so good into this as well. It's like both teams have picked certain picks that are very good into each other's draft, but the question really is, who's gonna be able to execute it the best?
That is the time, age-old question, Hells. Sometimes you see, at the highest levels of international competition, you see 2 different compositions being drafted, and it's a clash of styles, and sometimes it just comes down to the execution at the end of the day.
And that's what's going to happen here. So as you can see, Penguin is looking for those roams. And it's actually Yunha on the Yuumi as well, looking for a roam. And it's going to be hard to kill Anthrog, but I believe T1 is going to try to go for this.
If Yunha can get there in time, now this is a stat buffed up Garen. So he's going to be far more difficult for even 3 members of T1 to take
He's
down.
unkillable. When there's a Yuumi attached to a Garen, he's just absolutely unkillable. And that's the beauty of Androck on the Garen. He's probably never going to get killed, easily at least. Now it's going to be Andy possibly trying to look for a gank, and it seems like he actually doesn't. I would have loved to see him go behind and try to kill BDG right there, but it seems like Andy had none of that.
Andy taking a slower approach, just making sure that they can get the wave reset in. It's 4 minutes now, so turret resistances have been dropped globally. I'm curious to see if Leviathan will make efforts to set up wave states and look for a turret pushing play, or if they're prioritizing objectives
And we
instead.
see a lot of WRL teams do this, right? Where they push out those side waves and then they get ganks. After a gank, boom, turret. So let's see what these teams actually decide to do. And that one play that WRL teams make, it works so unbelievably well. They are always able to get a turret at that 4-minute mark, but it seems like both teams are not applying that much pressure. They're both just kind of taking the chill way and playing it safe right now.
Yeah, when we look at last game, T1 was the first team that made the first move. It was all Jong on the Camille, setting up for JY for an easy gank. He doesn't have quite the same tools to make that execution, but Lumish might be in trouble here, already using the Proto Belt. Woo! Yeah. That Proto Belt rush, actually, very nifty.
Leviathan is actually able to kinda able to deal with the pressure from T1 right now. As you can see, Lumish defending the turret. They're gonna secure the Rift Herald as well. So Leviathan doing a phenomenal job right now, dealing with that pressure from T1, which they weren't able to do in the first game.
And Leviathan is now a race against the clock here. If they can get this Rift Herald and they can just send it into the nearest tower. Oh, never mind.
Never mind.
Just as I was saying it, T1 able to get the first brick down. That's the injection of gold, and that's the dragon.
Man, it feels like I'm watching a WRL team right now. T1 is just playing so well. They got a turret, they got the dragon, and the only thing that Leviathan got was a Rift Herald. So T1 just doing such a good job. I feel like they learned a lot from the WRL teams, because as I said, like, to me it feels right now we're watching a WRL team, and in their first game as well, they were pushing their leads every single time, not giving a single chance to Leviathan to make a comeback. And although it's not going as fast right now, it kind of feels like the same.
Oh, Jong now in the 1v1 against Lumish. Lumish already popping the barrier. Oh, he's in trouble. Ignite has ticked down, but Jong has the mobility. First blood once again goes over to T1.
And yet again, Jong asserting his dominance on those power picks that he has. The Riven, the Camille, truly showing how good of a player he is. And I mean, at this point, the question is like, do you have to target ban it out against him? But that's gonna be 2 bans only against Zong. And I feel like he can play other champions just as well as the Camille and the Riven.
That's going to be a question that other teams will have to answer if T1 are able to carry out this momentum. They have the numbers advantage on this Baron side of the map, but it's the last chapter, and Androck flashing forward to connect the route, getting distance onto Core, but he's running away and he's got the poison ticket. Demacian Justice, a lot of true damage, and it's a leap strike from Andy that smites him down, but it's a easy trade by on back. Kite forced to use the shockwave, doesn't do enough to keep T1 away as they slay another.
Whoa, BDG doing so much damage during that team fight, and he's just sitting in the back, not really taking much damage, and meanwhile shooting out those arrows. I mean, look at that damage. Oh,
that's the BDG Bear special, baby. You
Lumesh.
Can't disrespect it. Lumesh wants some revenge, but he can't get in range.
Definitely. Lumesh just a tad bit too late to the party. If he was there a few seconds earlier, could have been able to kill all of them, but wow. T1 showing how good their composition was right there, because Core got caught, but he just didn't die.
Okay, well, did you just caster jinx him? Let's see.
No. That's the power of the cinch, right? Like you get caught by a composition like that, but you just don't die anyways.
Well, at least Leviathan, for their sake, they are able to get a turret down with this Rift Herald. It opens up the mid side of the map, and that is going to give them a little bit easier access into the jungle.
That's one of the most important objectives in the game, right? The mid lane turret. And especially when you have Kite sitting on that Orianna, it means you can defend your mid lane turret very well, because Orianna has one of the best wave clears in the game. So if Leviathan can keep this up and defend their mid lane turret, they'll have a better chance at winning those team fights around the mid lane.
It's all about stalling for the side of Leviathan. They have Andy on the Jax, who is now corralling right on the JY, but it is Penguin once again. The Dark Passage giving him the safety. They're looking for a way back in. Play already expended. Death Sentence not available until right now. Pulls Andy right in, flashing away for the Counter-Strike stun. Demacian just doesn't even get a chance to go off. Lumesh with the dunk does not get it through.
And the Youngmi died as well. Yunha was attached to Lumesh, desperately trying to save him, but unfortunately wasn't able to. And then it's Yuumi dying as well, so you're giving away 2 kills at that point. And T1 is taking everything. They're taking turrets, they're taking kills, they're taking the jungle, and they're going to be looking for that mid lane turret as well right now.
And this is the contrast. Whenever Leviathan were able to get a kill away from T1, they weren't able to get that many objectives. T1, they take one kill, they take everything.
And this is it, man. This is what you need to beat out those WRL teams. It's just so amazing to see how T1 has evolved through this tournament. It feels like a whole different team. This feels like a beast team.
D1 from the play-in stage, the first time that we saw them playing against
Rix, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring it up and give you trauma, you know. But looking at this replay, I mean, this is the way they are coordinated, how well executed everything is.
Really
is an evolution from their play-in stage games.
Definitely, like you can see Core doing his job as a Singed, you know, tanking up all the damage, tanking up all the CC, but he doesn't die because he's a Singed. Meanwhile, he slows up everyone, and yet again, it's 4 of the carries from T1 sitting on top of the gold
Woo! BDG! No hesitation, flashing forward over the wall with the Chain of Corruptions, sends Lumesh back to the fountain.
And that's a free kill. And what does that mean? That's another Rift Herald. Rift Herald means another turret. It's just T1 keeping their game on. Sitting on a 6,000 gold. The Dragon is not even spawned yet. Leviathan is just, yet again, just kind of waiting to see what happens. They're unable to get anything except for their own little jungle camps.
And when I was talking with their coach, June, after their play-in stage games, and he was content with some of the performances, but at the same time, he said, I know we can do better. I know that we have a lot to work on. We're learning a lot in scrims. We're performing above expectations, but we know we can do more. And this is the level of performance that T1 want to continuously build upon as they advance further in the tournament.
This is really good. Like, this is top-notch gameplay from T1 right now. It doesn't even feel like Leviathan is a top 1 team up against this 3rd seed, which is T1. T1 is just doing such a phenomenal job, and they seem fearless as well. It seems like a fearless team. They're going in when they have to go in, even if it feels like they're risking something. Like right here, they're starting the Dragon, but they're fearless. They know they can do it.
Second Dragon being started up. T1 have already burned it down to 2,000 HP. Leviathan have to make the charge, but the Dragon is secured. Shockwave doesn't hit anyone. No CC available for Leviathan to be able to follow up on, and it's T1 all day on the Rift. Fearless, fierce, and clinical is T1 for the Prime Gaming Ace.
Oh my god, what a perfect team fight by T1 again. And wow, that double kill by BDG felt so good. And it was yet again, same story. Core tanking up everything on that Singed. He didn't even die. And right now, T1 is gonna destroy the base of Leviathan. Taking mid lane, taking bot lane, taking the jungle, taking Dragon. Yet again, taking absolutely everything.
Maximization optimization. It is all built into the name of T1 and their org's brand, being able to successfully take out multiple turrets in one fell swoop.
Wow, just wow. It's amazing to see T1 play right now. They're just executing their team fight so incredibly well. And as we head into the Coca-Cola pop-up, I want you to put your eyes on Core right now, which is the Singed. Just look at him, look at him. He keeps running, and Leviathan desperately tries to kill him. Meanwhile, their entire team is dying because they get slowed by the Singed. They take all of that damage from BDG, and this right here, Rafa. Oh, that one felt so good to watch.
When the fight is split up and chaotic, that is when a Kha'Zix gets to thrive best. Arrows from the Varus, poison from the Singed, more chaos from the Riven, just causing knockups and absolute disarray, and then the Kha'Zix just gets to have a field day.
It was just a perfect fight for T1 yet again. Leviathan has to find a way to take care of that Singed, right? Like we talked about it during after the draft. Core is going to be a massive problem for Leviathan. How do you kill the Singed? The question is, or the answer is probably you just don't. I think you just kind of have to deal with it because, and I know that's normally not the answer against a Singed, but what can you do? Try to take care of JY, try to take care of BDG, try to take care of Jong, because these are at least champions that you can catch.
Jong is doing the catching by himself, it seems. Hell's already won on the Lumish, and he's on the run. Last chapter gets him a pass back to safety, but T1, they are 13,000 gold ahead. It is not just domination, they are running this rift.
This is pretty much game over right now. Like Leviathan is not given a single chance against T1, and you can see like they're desperately trying to go in, but then what are you gonna do? You cannot do anything against this comp of T1 right now.
It is at the point where Leviathan, they're getting smacked by thicker wallets. Shockwave is huge, but can you make up the difference in the follow-up? And it doesn't seem like that's the case. T1 undeterred by any responses from the #1 team from the WOL. Another inhibitor will fall. Outer turret is down.
The WCK honestly feels like the top 3 region right now. We've seen Roster Y play, we've seen T1 play. WCK is really stepping up their game. They're showing how strong they truly are, and especially if you look at JY, if you look at BDG, they're all just playing such a phenomenal game right now.
And it's such a good response from the region as a whole, from T1 and Roster Y, after the fall of their second seed in Kwangdong Freaks, to go down to Sentinels and then Buriram prior to that. It raised so many concerns about, is Korea going to deliver? Are they truly a top 3 team? Is Brazil going to overtake them? But T1 with a performance like this erases concerns. This silences doubters in the way that they dominate and clinically take out Leviathan.
This is just domination. At this point, it's just delaying the inevitable as Leviathan. T1 is pushing their lead. They're gonna go for the Baron right now, and they're gonna look to finish the game as well.
It's all eyes on the Baron to this point, Hells. T1, just one objective away, setting up the dominoes to fall into place.
And what can you do as Leviathan right now? You know, when you go in, you're gonna die. If you don't go in, T1 takes that Baron and secures the game. So you can see Leviathan is looking for some desperate plays.
The box slows them down. The last chapter is not enough. Leviathan on the run once again after forced to make the initial engage, but T1 gets to pick and pull them apart once again. Androck is the last member standing, but it is T1 on the doorsteps of the base, not even waiting for the minion wave. They have the Baron buff, and they're going to just take out Androck for another Prime Gaming ace. T1 clean out WOL from the Icons tournament and advance in their stage.
What a dominant performance. They have such a great future ahead in the knockout stage as well. They're going to be up against the Chinese team, but T1 just showed that they got what it takes. What a phenomenal performance. And man, this is a whole new T1 that I just saw.
Now, T1 still have one more team to play against before they move on to the knockout stage, but advancing from the lower bracket of the elimination.
After seeing that, I mean,
I know there's a lot of like inspiration now. It's like, wow, T1, if they play like that, they can take on any team. You still got to play against Team Flash, and if you're Team Flash, who took probably the roughest defeat. Hang on, before we talk about that, this
is cute.
This is cute, man. T1, good job, guys. I mean, that's.
The coach is going to be happy about
yeah. June is definitely definitely smiling in the back room right now. It's like, yes, this is what I want to see
This
from
is
my
what we
squad.
want,
This
yeah.
is what I know my squad can be.
Yeah, just incredible, honestly. You know, when you see your team perform like this, win in 15 minutes, do a near flawless game, I mean, what else do you want as a coach? Like, just prepare for the next game and tell them, good job, guys. You just did a phenomenal job on the stage right now.
You know what that gets? It's a good pat on the back. You know, it's like, I'm proud of you.
Yeah,
Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Just-
Thank you. And I'll make you proud during the next series as well, right?
There
That's
you
what
go.
they're going to say.
That is what T1 are looking forward to
Happy
already.
faces as well.
The post-celebration as well. Sigh of relief and happy faces. Once again, oh, and there's the cheering from T1.
We can hear that as well,
yeah,
right? We can hear that through our headset right
That
now.
is loud cheering. We can hear them all the way from the casting booth, and they're on the opposite ends of the stadium. So,
Yeah, and their morale is up as well, right? They're ready for Team Flash. They're ready to take them on as well. This is it for them.
Team Flash is now going to be a tough opponent for them to take on. But, of course, for more on the series and then their eventual opponents in Team Flash, you know, I'm curious to hear from Kangas, Riku, and TJ, especially Riku. This is one of your remaining WCS representatives now facing up against what seems like a empowered
beast.
T1.
A beast.
The rematch.
I know. They're fine. They're fine. I think they're going to be fine. We saw already how Team Flash performed against T1, so I'm not sweating at all. No, no.
I think based on how the last time went, Team Flash should still feel confident, but T1 did look pretty good here. I mean, they were playing a very, clear game. Honestly, a lot of their early games matched what teams like Nova were doing. Teams like JDG were doing. Those like 4 to 5 minute, 3 champions go to overload one side of the rift and force the turret take. Like, it seems like T1's adapting. Like, they're learning from some of their losses and getting better as the tournament goes on.
I particularly like the rotate of BDG up to the top lane for that play they made through the top side of the map, making sure that Varus is participatory in the fight and getting gold from it, because their entire game plan, as we talked about during the draft, was to get a really big Varus, give him a lot of gold,
Yep.
and let him shoot some arrows.
Yeah, I think I like this form of T1, especially that pew. There's two forms of T1 basically. Either JY is the one where they pour all their resources in, or BDG. This time in this series, it was completely onto JY. BDG here having, the utility as the Varus.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is just super strong. Having the Varus and Thresh is a very dangerous thing to give to the Dragon lane of T1, and they're able to execute that so perfectly.
It was the arrows.
It was arrows.
We weren't on camera, and I thought like they might not have understood.
True. They didn't catch
True.
the motions along with it. And Leviathan, it wasn't for lack of trying. We see plays like this where they were flashing for it. They were trying to go for these plays. But when they go south and T1 gets fed off of them, and we also have individual outplays from the solo lane, specifically Jaejong, yeah, this is how game 2 goes. Like, this is T1
Yeah.
playing a very clean game from this point on.
Yeah, I feel like Jaejong was getting revenge because earlier Androck was winning the 1v1 against him in game number 1, and then suddenly they're like, okay, I can take you on. Jaejong's like, I can 1v1 you without the assistance of JY, and on this Riven, he's incredibly scary as well.
At the end of the
You
day,
hit him with the question mark penguin.
he did. TJ was very
What's
excited
going
about
on?
that when we were
I
watching
just don't
behind
know.
the scenes. I don't
Who
know
knows what's going on?
I don't know if we had many crazy caster cams, but we do have footage of TJ saying exactly that when that happened.
I just think it's the most BM because it's like, instead of a you're bad or anything, it's a what's going on with you?
You're like, huh?
You doing okay?
Are you okay?
It's like, wait,
What's going on?
yeah.
Buddy, are you okay, bud?
So T1 will get their rematch against Team Flash going forward. You see how excited they were. They were very animated as well during the game, after the game. It's cool to see these teams actually popping off and having high energy moments here. TJ, I see you cringing a little bit. What's that about?
I see the Varus fight is what I see there around the 7-minute mark, that top lane fight.
Yeah.
And then it just
keeps going.
Yep.
Ain't no breaks on that gold lead. I was trying to make an analogy there, and I didn't.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's a
wasn't an analogy.
good
It was
attempt.
just
Yeah.
a mixed
Good
metaphor.
Nice try.
This is why.
One more time, ready? 3,
okay.
2, 1.
No breaks on that train.
Sure.
See, this is what happens
The
when you put me
train
on
is
the
a
spot, TJ.
metaphor for the gold lead.
It's a metaphor for the tracks that Leviathan will be heading back home on, as unfortunately they are leaving the tournament now, not able to pick up a win, and LATAM as a region still chasing for greatness and an international series victory here. But it is always sad to see teams go. At the end of the day, that's competition.
Yep.
Only the top teams, only the best teams will continue on in the tournament. And today, that team was T1.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like if T1 is very comfortable with this configuration where they pour all their resources onto JY, I think that's going to be a very important approach as the tournament progresses if they don't fall against Team Flash on the next day. So that's going to be very important for knockouts.
And that would be my flag. Yes, T1 look better, but also their greatest challenges lie ahead of them. It's only good teams from here on out, and them looking better and more organized than they have over the course of the tournament is important, but they've barely been scraping by so far, and I don't know that we saw a fast enough T1 to keep up with teams that are going to challenge them during that early game.
My next question was going to be, did we learn anything new about T1 that could be useful against Team Flash? The closest I could think about is maybe like that early game turret play, for example. Okay, yes?
Do you want to go first?
Is it JY early game topside game?
Oh!
No.
Okay. That's the second time today we're not on the same page.
Okay, I'm keeping track of this.
Okay.
I was going to say, they know about BDG. It was kind of a question to me whether or not it was on purpose the first time.
That's true.
Because BDG was farming up, but there weren't a ton of resources going to that bottom side of the map. The way they played around BDG this time, where we did see ganks very deliberately going to that lane, even when maybe it wasn't optimal, where we did see the full rotate of BDG up to the top side, makes me think that T1 do understand that win condition and are creating the opportunities for it.
Yeah, I think that's highly possible because that's an approach, right? We're looking at Team Flash, their mid jungle top incredibly strong, but I feel like that's the avenue. I wouldn't say that, LEMT, air quote, like the weakest link. I think they're very stable, but that's like a calm lane that they can take advantage of to create chaos.
He was too busy doing air quotes to respond to your
Not a lot of that registered.
And the fact that Jaejong is playing that calm lane is important, but Core is still absent.
Oh, that's true. Coyote is going to have a fun time.
And especially into that matchup, if you're playing slow in lane, like you're talking about, Coyote is very good on the rotate, is going to be elsewhere on the map. So that is something that we do need to see cleaned up. We've been seeing a lot of Core in interviews talking about how he understands the expectations, about how people compare him to Faker.
Yeah.
And we need to see him deliver on those expectations and the likeness in order to be able to compete with all of the top mid laners from here on. Because if you look at the other teams in their group, in their potential knockout bracket, there are teams that can win through every lane. And we do not yet have that from T1.
And even though I wasn't as convinced by Team Flash's performance, TJ, you were saying pump the brakes. Team Flash are still, a very scary team.
It'll be fine.
They're going to be incredibly motivated here to pick up a series win, make it into knockouts. I feel like Team Flash are, when your back's against the wall, you're going to play more aggressive. You're going to play more reckless often. And I think that this is going to be a Team Flash now that T1 lost the last matchup against them. And if anything, Flash is going to want this even more this time.
Oh, for sure. They're going to be extra hungry for that win, for that series win. And they can do it again. If they did it before, they can do it again. They just need to be extra aggressive to not let T1 have any room to breathe.
So let's think about that from Flash's side then, TJ. If you're watching this series, if you just watch this version of T1 show up, is there anything that they need to be thinking about, anything that they can adapt or pivot in their strategy?
I'm going to be very interested in that bottom side because we've seen a couple of teams now try to run the hyper carry strategy. It's not just this performance from BDG, it's also Luna, who got given some hyper carries in the Draven, and it's also Omega, who played also that Draven on the bottom side of the map. So I want to see whether or not that's going to succeed against top teams, because my theory coming into this tournament, I was talking about it with Leonard, Omo, we were talking about the theory of how do you run hyper carries in a meta like this.
Right.
And it should just be we see what we saw done by JDG yesterday, which is a full load of assassins, which is we're going to get Zed, we're going to get Jax, we're going to dive into your backline with Camille as well, and with 3 assassins, any kind of late game scaling is going to be destroyed in the first 5.
Well, that's our next matchup, but for now, we actually have an interview with one of the victorious members from T1. So let's send it over to Mika for our post-match interview.
Thanks so much, guys. I am here right now with T1's Jong right beside me. Congratulations on your win. So I've got a few questions for you. First up, I want to know how you guys were preparing for this match. Were you guys at all worried facing Leviathan?
일단 오늘 경기 승리 너무 축하드리고요. 첫 번째 질문으로는 이번 경기에 대해서 좀 걱정을 하시는지가 궁금해요. 레비아탄 상대로 좀 어떤 마음가짐이셨나요?
일단 저희 개인 기량들이 전부 다 앞선다고 생각을 해서 딱히 걱정은 없었고요. 2대 0으로 가볍게 이길 거라고 생각하고 왔었습니다.
So I did think that all 5 members of our team were much better than the opponent team. So we weren't worried at all. And we were thinking that we would win 2-0 series.
Wow, amazing. And you thought right. Now, speaking of all 5 members, we saw you guys cheering and celebrating after the win. Who would you say is the loudest, the most fun member of T1?
오늘 경기 끝나고 좀 시끄럽게 좋아하는 모습도 카메라에 찍혔는데 팀원들 중에서 가장 시끄러운 멤버가 누구인가요?
서포터의 펭귄 선수가 가장 말이 많지 않나 그렇게 생각하고 있습니다.
I think our support player, Penguin, is the most talkative one out of the 5 members.
Oh, wow. This is a sport that's the loudest of all. Now, are there any Baron laners going into the knockout stage that you are looking forward to challenging?
노가웃 스테이지에 진출한 팀들의 탑라이너들 중에 혹시 유난히 또 만나보고 싶은 상대가 있으신지?
딱히 만나고 싶다 그런 상대는 없고요. 그냥 TF 샤이 선수한테 복수하고 싶어서 다시 만났으면 좋겠었는데 오늘 이기게 돼서 만나게 될 것 같습니다.
There's no particular Baron laner that's in the knockout stage that I want to face up against, but I'm happy that we won today so that I could face up against TF Shy tomorrow in the elimination match.
And yes, speaking of which, before we even think about the knockout stage, you have TF coming up. How are you guys preparing for that?
말씀하신 대로 내일 TF와의 경기 예정되어 있는데 어떤 식으로 준비하고 계신가요?
일단 라인전 체크부터 제가 이긴다고 생각을 해서 초반부터 압박하면서 원사이드하게 이기도록 하겠습니다.
I think I am a stronger laner than the opponent, so I will focus on getting the lead in the early game.
Awesome. Looking forward to it, Jung. Thanks so much for your time. Back to you guys on the analyst desk.
Thank you, Mika. Penguin, loudest on the team. Now we know who's making all the noise up on stage, I suppose.
Also, Jaejong, I think I'm the better laner. I'm